Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for staying, by the way. I see the room's kind of halved just after that lunch break. Can you all hear me all right? Yep, my lovely dulcet tones of my Yorkshire accent. So my name is Danielle Dacuna Howarth. I'm in fact half Portuguese, half English. My husband says I'm a very special breed. I'm Yorkshireese. So yeah, all the passion of Portugal, all the sarcasm of the UK. So I'm a very unique breed. So we live in a world where the average tenure of our sales reps is actually in decline. And we are all competing against each other for the best talent, developing the best talent, retaining the best talent, and getting the best performance out of our talent. Now, under those circumstances, you might be thinking, how do I maximize the time that I have with these people, in particular when they enter our organizations? When do you think salespeople are the most engaged? When they enter our organization. Why? Because they don't know everything yet. As soon as they know everything, they're not interested in hearing from you. So if we optimize this time, trust me, you are going to see results. So we're all deeply passionate about learning and development. I absolutely love seeing people thrive. I really like people, and I know you all share. That's why you're here. We all share that same passion that we want people to thrive. And so I'm going to step you through a presentation that I've put together today based on my experience of actually creating the sales onboarding experience across APAC for Salesforce, from their mid-market account executives right the way up to enterprise, including sales leaders. I'm going to step you through some of my key learnings from massive mistakes that I made. You're welcome. And so I'm really hoping that you'll enjoy this presentation. Now, some of you in this room might be sat there thinking, hey, Danielle, we already have an onboarding experience. And it's fine, it's all right. Everybody seems to like it. They're all kind of performing. And if that's the case, wonderful. You are already ahead. 27% of businesses still do not have an onboarding experience. How embarrassing. So you're already ahead of the game. So, but I am hoping that throughout the presentation, you will find some new ideas. I might give you some new creative ideas that you can implement, because we know that onboarding really never stops. It should always be changing. Others in the room might be thinking, that sounds wonderful. There's only me in the organization. And how do I take this on? Because it seems like a really big, mammoth thing. So don't worry. There are things that you can take away from this, no matter how big or small your team or organization is. So I ask you to have an open mind. Please, if you do have any questions, interrupt me. I don't mind. It's 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Why not? Okay, so this is my agenda. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of onboarding. Then I'll talk to you about developing your own onboarding experience. And then I'll finish up with some Q&A at the end. So the impact of onboarding. But more importantly, the impact of ineffective onboarding to organizations. So CSO Insights found that if you have an ineffective onboarding experience, your quota attainment will be reduced by up to 9%. 9%. Your win rates will also be reduced by 4.5%. If you think about the implications to revenue, the implications to some people achieving or not achieving targets, that's huge. Now, couple that with delayed ramp times. If you have a poor onboarding experience, the average new sales hire spends 10 weeks in training and development only to become productive after 11.2 months. 11.2 months. Wow, Sales Management Association. Then the Bridge Group found that the average sales rep tenure is now 1.5 years, down from 3 years. And that's what I'm talking about. This is in decline. Now, before we all go home, get under the covers and cry into a cup of tea, don't worry, we can turn this around. So basically, onboarding, I think, has been put, my observations, my hypothesis is that onboarding has been put into this, it's just orientation. It's just step in, here's your laptop, there's your phone, use this email system, these are your work colleagues, off you go. We have to focus on onboarding, in particular for any customer-facing roles. They have to have their own tracks, they have to have their own information, because we need them to be ramping up a lot quicker than 11.2 months, okay? So, if we turn this around and you then have a really effective onboarding experience, these are the types of figures that you can look to achieve. 14% higher win rates for sales organizations that have a good sales onboarding experience. 54% faster ramp times. So we're taking that 11.2 months down to around 5 or 6 months if we have an effective onboarding experience. And then 69% better retention. So employees said they would stay up to 3 years if they had a really good onboarding experience. So if you think about the previous statistics, where we had optimum performance after 11.2 months at 1.5 years, you're getting optimum performance at 6, maximum 7 months. If you have a good onboarding experience, 2.5 years. Yes, Kelly.
So yeah, when you classify as ramp time, is it 2 quota, first sale, like
Yep.
classified as
And there are a range of different ratios, as we all know. For me, I think to quota. Like that's my preference, but I know there are many different ratios. So yeah, that would be my preference. But that's something we can chat about because I do think it's a really interesting one. Okay, so developing your own onboarding experience. So let me set the scene. So I started at Salesforce 3.5 years ago. Salesforce, right? Huge brand, 40,000 person organization on the cusp of innovation. And I walk in thinking Salesforce are going to have this down pat. I'm just going to walk in, I'm just going to execute this really great job and everything's going to be fabulous. Absolutely not the case. I'm really glad Phil isn't here, my previous manager, because I can talk really openly about this. Absolutely not. We have this amazing boot camp experience. You go to San Francisco, you get to drink the Kool-Aid, you get tours around the office, and then you get back and how do I do my job again? Okay. So this was the first project or big project that I took on with some colleagues of mine, and it was to basically stand up the APAC onboarding experience. Big job, but I like a challenge. So here's what I learned. Research is key. And it's really, I'm sad that Phoebe's gone because Phoebe spoke 100% my language. So how did we do this? We actually created a project team, right? So thinking about service design, delivery, you cannot do this on your own, nor do you have all of the information, and particularly me, because I was new to the organization. Whilst I know how to sell and sell really well, how does Salesforce operate? So we basically got together a steering group. Some people were just stakeholders and observers. Other people were really involved in actually helping us obtain this information. And again, if you think, and to your point earlier on, Iris, if you are not liaising with marketing, sales operations, sales programs, enablement, talent development, like Salesforce is complex, right? There are so many different parts of that organization. So off we went and we interviewed everybody. So here, when I say interviews, there's a way that you do interviews. You don't just go and take them out for a coffee. You have a very structured approach. You ask them all the same questions. You are not allowed to add any bias into that. You just keep asking deeper questions. Tell me more. You're in a safe environment. I'm not going to tell anyone. Go, go, go. So you get all that information. You walk in their shoes. So I went to that lovely boot camp in San Francisco and they say, no, you don't need to do that because you're in sales enablement and you don't need to do that. And I said, no, Put me in the AE track. I want to do it all. I want to be in the competitions. I want to be doing the stand and delivers. I want to be doing the whiteboarding that you have. I want to meet all these people. I need to walk in these people's shoes if I am going to be training them when they get back. And have that beginner's mindset. Does this stuff make sense at all? Is it contextualized? Does it make sense? So you have to approach your research with that type of rigor, and you have to do a huge amount of it from different perspectives. Then you build out your process map, right? This sounds difficult, but it's actually not. It's really not difficult. You need to put this whole process, times, touch points, technology, people. What does that experience currently look like across the board when they enter the organization? Because then you can see the gaps. Then you can see what existing resources you currently have, how they're engaging with it, is it working? And this comes down to, I don't care how big your organization or what technology you have, map it out based on where you are right now. Line in the sand. Don't go and evaluate any massive CRM projects until you've done this, okay? Good. So that's my research stage. Loads of information. You can never, ever have enough information. You want to be listening out for, God, I wish they'd have told me that 5 weeks ago. That's what you want to be listening out for. Or why was that really hard to find? They're the things you need to be looking out for. Yes, you have a question?
How did you record that?
Yeah. So basically we had a collaboration tool called Quip, which you can purchase from Salesforce. So basically collaboration. So we had one source of truth, like the interview document, for instance, would be one interview document. You can copy it. You enter everything in. I preferred just typing on the go as people are talking. Some people did go and have it transcribed and then just put into a document. So is that what you're referring to? Or?
Yeah, but did you have like a central location where that was stored?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So Quip really is a great tool. So yeah, it's all in one place, one folder. You can share it. You can work on documents at the same time, ask people questions, comment. So it really, everything in one place for sure. Like no single Word documents with different dot version, whatever. Like all has to be on a good piece of kit, which is cheap. You don't have to pay a lot for that. Okay, next, we have talked about this, but improving the learning experience. So once you've mapped it out, what are we missing? Some of you have had conversations with me over the past couple of days. This is my mantra. When you look at that map and you hear what people are saying, what do I need to know, right? That first 4 weeks, what do they need to know to do their job? Then what do I want to know? So if we go, need to know in the first 4 weeks, how to use this technology. Don't forget the tiny things. The amount of account executives that have said to me, hey Danielle, can I just have 2 minutes of your time? Yes. I've been using Outlook for like 20 years and you use Google. I don't know how to use it. No problem, let me help you out. Like it's the little things that prevent people from actually doing their job. So what do I need to know to do my job? The next one, if you move on to the next 4 to 8 weeks, what do I want to know? So by that point, I'm starting to get my arms around my book of business. So what's my territory plan look like? What are my top accounts? Have I got any opportunities in place? So what are the tactics then around our sales methodologies on how we start to execute? That's when I want to know it. And then the final piece is like to know. Some people just want to keep, okay, I want to know a bit more about that now. I want to go a little bit deeper into that now. I really want to know about that product. So then you've got to have a little bit more on demand so that it's not prescriptive. It's more, I just know where it is and I can go grab it if I need it. That is great enablement. Okay, range of modalities. We've talked a lot about this, but I cannot stress it enough. Everybody learns differently. Whether you're introverted, whether you're extroverted also plays a huge part into how collaborative you also like being in this environment. So just to pick a couple of these, the face-to-face, I love face-to-face training. It's how I learn. And I think a lot of salespeople are definitely in that boat. 2 things that we implemented were we ran some workshops called Do My Job, great branding. And basically what we did was we invited all the people that you will interact with throughout a sales cycle. We're going to invite them in. They're going to talk to you about how to interact with them, what they do in their role. And then, so they're getting exposure to some senior people in the organization, and they know exactly what the process looks like and who they're going to be engaging with. And those got 5 out of 5 from the day that we launched them. This is great. So think about when you do those face-to-face, how impactful you can make them. Stand and delivers. So we talked about the forgetting curve. Absolutely love that. We have to keep reinforcing. You have to keep applying it. So the stand and delivers, all the managers do those. If it's something corporate, if it's something more corporate message, then we can jump in and do those. The managers get involved in the actual stand and delivers and signing them off. Peer learning groups, absolute gold, because they facilitate it, you don't. So, I love scale, right? So I put them in a peer group. We have our first coaching session. We absolutely lay down, how do we show up? What do we expect out of these? They set the ground rules, not me. And then they hold each other accountable. Where are you in the journey? Where are you? Oh, I'm a little bit behind. Oh, let me help you out. Here's what I found. Here's what I did last week. Peer learning groups, wonderful. And then you can apply some gamification. If you have enough people who are onboarding at the same time, then you can apply a little bit of gamification as well. Coaching. Oh, the secret sauce. The secret sauce to any training program, whether it's onboarding or beyond. Mr. Fish, you were speaking my language yesterday. I love coaching. It's something I would say that's very innate in me, and it's something that I have really worked on and educated myself on. And I actually coach people in a professional and a personal environment as well. So I'm very privileged that people trust me and enjoy sharing things with me. But just to add a little bit more to this, so coaching. Firms spending the most on sales manager training have the highest performing sales forces. If your sales managers can coach, things are on the up. So if I was going to invest my time in any coaching, it's the sales managers first. Scale, 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 scale. 46% of sales reps say coaching by their sales manager is one of the best ways to reinforce new sales skills. Okay, if my manager can hold me accountable, if they can coach to me on the topic, if they can course correct me as I'm working my way through this, it will embed. It absolutely will embed. When training is reinforced by in-the-field coaching, companies see up to 4 times ROI on that one training program alone. Massive, 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 massive. If you do not have coaching programs in your organization, start one up. And also invest in yourself to become a really, really good, strong coach. And finally, technology and tracking. So, Nick, I'm so glad you asked that question. Where's it all going to be housed? It has to be one place. It has to be one source of truth. So important that everybody knows where to go. Everybody knows that it's one version. And I do not care what technology that is. If it's Google Sheets, if it's Quip, if it's whatever you have, what do you currently have that can really help you to deliver this? It has to be in one place. It has to be a single source of truth. Tracking. Again, depending on what technology you have, what you're using, a little bit harder if you're in more of a startup phase. But it's so important to know where people are in that journey. And whether that's, manual to start off with, we still use manual check sheets at Salesforce to, who has attended all the workshops they're supposed to attend, who has attended the coaching meetings. We need to be able to report this back to the stakeholders and to the sales managers, because I unfortunately can't say to them, you're in the bad books because you didn't attend my workshop. That's not my job. But the sales managers absolutely can. So you can set that expectation. Feedback is key. I actually call it feed forward, because you can actually do something with it and change things. So feedback on not just you in a room, the assets. Are the assets any good? Are you actually going to use them? Do they need to change? So think about how you can get feedback on the assets, all that good stuff. And then again, to Phoebe's point, this will never end. Onboarding will never, ever end. It will always need to iterate and change. What you need to do is figure out by who, how often, when are you going to update it? Because you have to make sure that your people are prepared for the future. So if you acquire a new product and everybody needs to be upskilled on it, that's one project, but then how do we update the onboarding so every new person that's stepping into the organization is up to speed? So you really have to have this and all the links work, and because that experience of daily walk-in is so important. So you will continue to be in war rooms, sticking Post-its on walls and really enjoying that experience. But to be honest, of all the projects that I've done, and I did many, this was probably one of my favorite, and it was probably the most impactful. And I can absolutely hang my hat on this project and say we made a difference and we reduced that ramp time. But what solidified that more for me was when I left and I published my little article on LinkedIn around my reasons for leaving, and the beautiful comments that I got from the account executives across APAC saying, I couldn't have done my job without you. You really helped me in my hours of need. I felt empowered when I stepped in the door. That's why I do this job. That is exactly why I do this job. And that is it from me. Thanks very much. Any questions? Go.
So coaching.
Coaching. Yeah.
So where do you find, is there a trend in resistance from sales managers? That's probably a bit of a leading question. I found there's resistance.
Okay.
And I was interested to know if you found that as well. Is there any commonality in the type of resistance that people have in spending time in coaching?
Could you give me an example of like what resistance you're hearing?
Yeah, sure. So it's, I think, like we train on objection handling, sometimes what's said isn't actually the intent. So for example, someone may say, I don't have the time to do that, but I think actually what it is I don't have the skill to do that.
Yeah.
So do you see the commonality in it?
Yes, and that's the best example you could have given. So I think, let me step back a bit. So 71% of sales managers, first line sales managers, are employed, internal promotion, and no coaching, training, development on how to make that transition into management, right? Again, Salesforce, there's no training for that until you're in the role. And so I actually don't think they are prepared or given the skills on how to be a coach, and therefore they don't see the benefits of it. And so my view is that we need to alleviate some of the things that are taking up their time and discover that with them and actually do some coaching on them first to go, well, what can we remove from your time? Because when they do coach, their figures are going to go up. They just need to trust you and trust the process, and they will see the results. It's trust. They don't believe it. No, they don't believe it, because sales managers are hardwired now that my job is forecasting, attending meeting, and like dealing with problems and being a counselor to my team. That's not what they should be doing. So hopefully that helps. Hey.
Well, I've got a two-part comment. So the first one, you had like to know. I find sometimes the like to know in a workshop can just be a distraction, and it may be a pre-sales person. Thank you.
Wanting to deep dive and go down a rabbit hole into something that's off topic, largely distracting, and sort of takes the class off it. So sometimes we use a car park to come back to that. So I just thought that was, like to know is sometimes something that we struggle with.
Yeah, in a facilitation environment, I get it. And they do it on purpose. They like to take things down rabbit holes. It's what they do. And the car park's a great example of, thank you very much for your contribution. I'm afraid we're going a bit off-piste. We'll put that down. And then just supplying the resources, always being like, and this is where you can go. for that further information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second piece, and this is a bit closer to home and more for the room as well, I wanted to see a show of hands as to are people finding a shift to online for new hire, or is it a new hire model that you've got, or is there a shift to continuous learning as opposed to new hire or in addition to new hire? Don't know exactly how to get a show of hands for that, but a lot of what I'm hearing is we're moving our onboarding online, and there'll be some face-to-face continuous learning that will be scattered, but there'll be a range of modules, and that's certainly where we're headed as well.
Yeah.
So.
Don't know whether that was me. Is that me? So just to share with you, so Salesforce's model is 70-20-10, 70% online, 20% face-to-face, 10% coaching. I absolutely disagree with that model. I always said that I disagreed with that model, particularly in this region. Culturally, Australians and the Brits, we like face-to-face engagement. We like to be able to ask questions. Again, thinking about our ages, where we've come from. So I think we're being a bit lazy by putting things online. It depends on the complexity of what it is. So if let me give you an example of that. So online, we would absolutely have how to do a quota attainment plan, videos of it, where it is, how to complete one. But in the workshop, 3 weeks later, we would actually get them to do their plan in the room. So it's more expose them to it, but use that as the first piece of learning to then reiterate and bring them back to it, so it's embedded in that learning. I think as long as it's a continuation, perfect. But anything that's complex, there's just no way you can put it online. There's just no way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is making sure that the technology actually is coaching the manager to have that face-to-face.
Yeah.
Because we're a workflow solution, the nudge goes to the manager with the key points, but it's not saying just show them this checklist. It's saying now go sit down with them and talk over these in person. So by utilizing the technology, you're making sure there's consistency, but you're still encouraging that face-to-face interaction to happen. So our customers then actually do see all the stats that Danielle has mentioned, where their productivity of their teams goes up, their retention goes down, all of these great numbers, because you don't want to over automate and lose that human element. You have to find the balance between the two. So you don't want 70-30-10. You might want 50-50 or 40-60.
Yeah. But
you can utilize technology to make sure those in-person activities still happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was just going to add something about technologies. Just like the stand and delivers, the milestones, it's things like that that hold sales leaders accountable to actually having those conversations, and that comes back to the tracking and whether they're doing it. So it has been a pleasure to speak to you all. If you would like, I'm actually putting all of these recommendations into like a little ebook, so if you want me to send that out to you, just go on to either message me on LinkedIn, or if you go onto my website, you can just enter your name and email and I'll get that out to you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. We've got our